Willie D. Live.
Family, did you know in 1962, generals in our military planned to wage an attack against American citizens? They planned to kill American citizens as part of the propaganda to justify going to war with Cuba. Whoa, man, hold on, man. Wait a minute. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so, man. How? Not not my government. My government would not participate in something so devious. I can't believe it. I refuse to believe that my government would do such. Wait a minute. Hold on. What is this? Unclassified, top secret, special handling. The Joint Chief of Staff, Washington, D.C. Wait a minute. This looks like official letterhead here. This is, okay, so this is a memorandum for the Secretary of Defense. I think we have our hands on some classified documents, family. Wait a minute. This is dated March 13, 1962, and it looks like some documents were unclassified. Some very serious. Wait a minute, I got to get into this, fam. This is groundbreaking. Our government has never been a part of anything like accused of something like this before. And you're telling me at one point we had a government, we had people in our own military who had planned to actually kill American citizens to justify going to war? They were going to remotely target federal buildings and knock them down. Family, they even alleged, well, this is not alleged. This is not alleged. They even calculated how many American citizens needed to die in order to justify war. Whoo! That's cold-blooded. Let me make this as big as possible so that you guys can read along. Let's see. Get this. Yeah, let's put that. That's too much. I need to make sure I'm in there. Okay. Whoo, man, this is cold, fam. This is heavy, and I'll give you a warning when it gets to be to the point where you might just want to give up. I'll give you a warning when I'm getting to that part. So this memorandum reads: the Joint Chief of Staffs have considered the attached memorandum for the Chief of Operations Cuba project, which responds to a request of that office for brief but precise description of pretexts which would provide justification for U.S. military intervention in Cuba. The Joint Chief of Staff recommend that the proposed memorandum, that the proposed memorandum be forwarded as a preliminary submission suitable for planning purposes. It is assumed that there will be similar submissions from other agencies and that these inputs will be used as a basis for developing a time-phased plan. Individual projects can then be considered on a case-by-case basis. Further, it is assumed that a single agency will give the preliminary or primary responsibility for developing military and paramilitary aspects of the basic plan. It is recommended that this responsibility for both overt and covert military operations be assigned the Joint Chief of Staff. And there you see the Joint Chief of Staff signature. So he got it. L.L. Littmitzer. There he is. Okay, let's get into it. The Joint Chief of Staff Cuba Project has requested that he be furnished the views of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on this matter by March 13, 1962. As requested by Chief of Operations Cuba Project, the Joint Chiefs of Staff are to indicate brief but precise description of pretexts which they consider would provide justification for U.S. military intervention in Cuba. Facts hearing on the problem. It is recognized that any action which becomes pretext for U.S. military intervention in Cuba will lead to a political decision, which would then lead to military action. Cognizance has been taken of a suggested course of action proposed by the U.S. Navy relating to generated instances in the Guantanamo area. For additional facts, see enclosure B, discussion. The suggested course of action appended to enclosure A are based on the premise that U.S. military intervention will result from a period of heightened U.S.-Cuban tensions, which place the United States in the position of suffering justifiable grievances. World opinion and the United Nations Forum should favorably affect it by developing the international image of the Cuban government as a rash and irresponsible and as alarming and unpredictable threat to the peace of the Western Hemisphere. While the foregoing premise can be utilized at the present time, it will continue to hold good only as long as there can be reasonable certainty that U.S. military intervention in Cuba would not directly involve the Soviet Union. See, they don't want to directly involve the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union got them things. There is, as yet, no bilateral mutual support agreement binding the USSR to the defense of Cuba. Cuba has not yet become a member of the Warsaw. A series of well-coordinated incidents will be planned to take place in and around Guantanamo to give a genuine appearance of being done by hostile Cuban forces. Incidents to establish a credible attack, not in chronological order. So this is how they're going to do it. This is how they're going to, this is how they plan to carry out the attack. So they're going to start rumors, as many as possible. This is the playbook, fam. This is the propaganda playbook. This is the same playbook that was ran on Saddam Hussein. It's the same playbook that was ran on Muammar Gaddafi. It's the same exact playbook. Start rumors, many. Use clandestine radio. Land friendly Cubans in uniform over the fence to stage attack on base. Capture Cuban friendly saboteurs inside the base. Start riots near the base main gate. Friendly Cubans, Blow up ammunition inside the base. Start fires. Burn aircraft on air base. Lob mortar shells from outside of base into base. Some damage to installations. Capture assault teams approaching from the sea or vicinity of Guantanamo City. Capture militia group which storms the base. Sabotage ship in harbor. Large fires. Sink ship near harbor entrance. Conduct funerals for mock victims. Did y'all hear that, fam? Sink ship near harbor entrance. Conduct funerals for mock victims. So when y'all see these funerals being conducted, this is what people often talk about, these fake funerals. You ain't seen nobody, but they got a casket. United States would respond by executing offensive operations to secure water and power supplies, destroying artillery and mortar emplacements, which threatened the base. Immense large-scale United States military operations. This is the cold. This is the cold-blooded part right here, y'all. A remember the main incident could be arranged in several forms. For example, we could blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay and blame Cuba. We could blow up a drone anywhere in the Cuban waters. We could arrange to cause such incident in the vicinity of Havana or Santiago as a spectacular result of Cuban attack from the air or sea or both. The presence of Cuban planes or ships merely investigating the intent of the vessel could be fairly compelling evidence that the ship was taken under attack. The nearness to Havana or Santiago would add credibility, especially to those people that might have heard the blast or have seen the fire. The U.S. could follow up with an air-sea rescue operation covered by U.S. firefighters or fighters to evacuate remaining members of the non-existent crew. The non-existent crew, they're going to evacuate members of the non-existent crew. Casualty lists in the U.S. papers would cause a helpful wave of national indignation. Remember I tell y'all, fam, that the mainstream media has always been in cahoots with the government to do its bidding? We could develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in Miami area and other Florida cities and even Washington. The terror campaign could be pointed at Cuban refugees seeking haven in the United States. We could sink a boatload of Cubans en route to Florida, real or simulated. We could foster attempts on lives of Cuban refugees in the United States, even to the extent of wounding in instances to be widely publicized. Exploding a few plastic bombs in carefully chosen spots. The arrest of Cuban agents and the release of prepared documents substantiating Cuban involvement also would be helpful in projecting the idea of an irresponsible government. A Cuban-based Castro-supported filibuster could be simulated against a neighboring Caribbean nation in the vein of the 14th of June invasion of the Dominican Republic. We know that Castro is backing subversive efforts clandestinely against Haiti, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, and Nicaragua at present, and possible others. These efforts can be magnified and additional ones contrived for exposure. For example, advantage could be taken of the sensitivity of the Dominican Air Force to intrusions within their national airspace. Cuban B-26 or C-46 type aircraft could make cane-burning raids at night. Soviet bloc incendiaries could be found. This could be coupled with Cuban messages to the communist underground in the Dominican Republic and Cuban shipments of arms which would be found or intercepted on the beach. Use of MiG type aircraft by U.S. pilots could provide additional provocation. Harassment of civil air, attacks on surface shipping, and destruction of U.S. military drone aircraft by MiG type planes would be useful as complementary actions. An F-86 properly painted, hold on, fam. An F-86 properly painted would convince air passengers that they saw a Cuban MiG, especially if the pilot of the transport were to announce such fact. The primary drawback to this suggestion appears to be the security risk inherent in obtaining or modifying an aircraft. However, responsible copies of the MiG could be produced from U.S. resources in about 3 months. Hijacking attempts against civil air and surface craft should appear to continue as harassing measures condoned by the government of Cuba. Concurrently, genuine defections of Cuban civil and military air and surface crafts should be encouraged. It is possible, check this one out. Hey family, about to go there again. It is possible to create an incident which will demonstrate convincingly that a Cuban aircraft has attacked and shot down a chartered civil airliner en route from the United States to Jamaica, Guatemala, Panama, or Venezuela. The destination would be chosen only to cause the flight plan route to cross Cuba. The passengers could be a group of college students off a holiday or any grouping of persons with a common interest to support chartering a non-scheduled flight. These people were talking about killing innocent college students. They're going to just kill innocent college students. Not just kill innocent college students, but kill them during the holidays while they're on a trip, on a holiday trip. This is why I say all of this Christmas stuff, Thanksgiving, these people don't care about none of that stuff, fam. This is all game. They playing in our faces. They don't care about none of this. All of this stuff is to get us to spend money and keep us down, keep us in control, keep themselves in control, us beneath them. They were going to kill a plane full of college kids from the United States. The United States military, United States government were going to kill their own babies just to go to war with Cuba, just to justify war. They said an aircraft at Elgin ABF would be painted and numbered as an exact duplicate for a civil registered aircraft belonging to a CIA proprietary organization in the Miami area. At a designated time, the duplicate would be substituted for the actual civil aircraft and would be loaded with the selected passengers, all boarded under carefully prepared aliases. The actual registered aircraft would be converted to a drone. Takeoff times of the drone aircraft and the actual aircraft would be scheduled to allow a rendezvous south of Florida. From the rendezvous point, the passenger carrying aircraft will descend to minimum altitude and go directly into an auxiliary field at Elgin AFB, where arrangements will have been made to evacuate the passengers and return the aircraft to its original status. The drone aircraft, meanwhile, will continue to fly at the filed flight plan. When over Cuba, the drone will being transported. I guess they're trying to say will be transmitted on the international distress frequency, a Mayday message stating he is under attack by Cuban MiG aircraft. The transmission will be interrupted by destruction of the aircraft, which will be triggered by radio signal. This will allow ICAO radio stations in the Western Hemisphere to tell the U.S. what happened to the aircraft instead of the U.S. trying to sell the incident. It is possible to create an incident which will make it appear that communist Cuban MiGs have destroyed the USAF aircraft over international waters in an unprovoked attack. Approximately 4 or 5 F-101 aircraft will be dispatched in trail from Homestead AFB, Florida, to the vicinity of Cuba. Their mission will be to reverse course and simulate fake aircraft for an air defense exercise in southern Florida. These aircraft would conduct variations of these flights at frequent intervals. Crews would be briefed to remain at least 12 miles off the Cuban coast. However, they will be required to carry live ammunition in the event that hostile actions were taken by the Cuban MiGs. On one such flight, a pre-briefed pilot would fly tail end Charlie at considerable interval between aircraft. While near the Cuban island, this pilot would broadcast that he had been jumped by MiGs and was going down. No other calls would be made. The pilot would then fly directly west at extremely low altitude and land at a secure base, an Elgin auxiliary. An Elgin auxiliary. The aircraft would be met for the proper people, quickly stored and given a new tail number. The pilot would have performed the mission under alias. Then he would resume his proper identity and return to his normal place of business. The pilot and aircraft would then have disappeared. At precisely the same time, that aircraft would was presumably shot down. A submarine or small surface craft would disperse F-101 parts, parachute, etc., at approximately 15 to 20 miles off the Cuban coast and depart. The pilots returning to the homestead would have a true story as far as they know. Search ships and aircraft would be dispatched and parts of the aircraft found. So family, they're talking about destroying, well, basically putting the aircraft in the air and letting it fly below at low altitudes and hiding the plane, and then having a mock plane, a fake plane that they have that they already have destroyed. That plane will be in the water, and they'll go out there and they'll retrieve some of the parts and stuff as if they're retrieving the parts from an actual plane that had been destroyed by Cuba. Whew! I don't believe nothing now. I can't believe any of it now, fam. I mean, none of it. This is cold-blooded. This is cold-blooded, fam. They were going to kill U.S. citizens. They were going to kill U.S. citizens so that they could justify invading a country. How many times has this happened? How many innocent people have been killed? How many times has that happened? How many fake assassinations have we seen? I mean, the person died. Yeah, they died. But how many times did they make it seem like somebody else did it? How many times did they make it seem like, oh, he just got into a fight with a dude in the hood and they shot him while he was walking down the sidewalk? The dude came back and got some revenge. How many times has those planes went down? You know, this makes me think about that plane that Mickey Leland was on. A lot of people suspect that that plane went down at the behest of U.S. authority. How many times have our leaders been killed? How many times have foreign leaders been killed under the guise of the U.S. being attacked and retaliating? Ooh, man. God, the wickedness, man. Just thinking of stuff like that. Like, this is why I say they don't care about us, fam. And this is why I say we are all on our own. We are on our own. They do not care about us. We're on our own. I absolutely believe 9/11. I believe 9/11 was staged. I do believe it. I believe it was staged. Now, people died. The deaths were real. The people died for real. Those towers went down for real. But it's too many coincidences, including the owner of the Twin Towers, or one of the main owners, taking out an insurance policy just months. Well, actually, they said he doubled up on the insurance policy just a couple of months before the towers were struck. And then you got reports where people say they heard an explosion before the second plane hit. Yeah, people are talking about they heard explosions at the bottom. On the ground level, they heard explosions. And then they said the way that the buildings crumbled. These are experts in explosives have said the way that the buildings went down was reminiscent of explosions, explosive devices being used, not a plane hitting it. Because they said the way the building was built, the plane hitting the building would not have made it crumble all the way down to ground level. It wouldn't have done that. Ooh, man. Talk about wicked. Talk about wicked. This is what I'm telling you, fam. The wicked people, they're running it.